Preview: I thought the scariest part of motherhood would be the sleepless nights and the responsibility. I never imagined the real nightmare would come from the man I trusted to share it all with me. This is the story of how the person lying beside me each night was living a double life, and how I found the strength to walk away for good. Part 1: The crib we built together. When I found out I was pregnant, I cried. Not because I was scared, although I was, but because I was happy. I had always wanted to be a mother, and doing it with Nathan felt right. We had been married for 4 years, had just bought our first real house, and while we weren't rich by any stretch, we had enough love and laughter to fill every room. Nathan was the kind of man who didn't show affection with grand gestures. He showed it in quiet ways. When my morning sickness was at its worst, he'd sit by the bathroom door, handing me sips of ginger tea. When I cried about stretch marks or mood swings, he'd hold my hand and tell me I was glowing, even when I knew I wasn't. We painted the nursery together, pale yellow, with tiny stars on the ceiling. He put the crib together with painstaking care, even though he hated instructions. I remember watching him tighten the last screw, standing back, his hands on his hips. "This is where she'll dream," he said. "We did this, Meg." He kissed my forehead and I thought, this is it. This is the life I always wanted. What I didn't know then was that while we were building dreams, he was already tearing them apart behind my back. The first time I felt something was off, it was small. A phone call he ignored when I was in the room. A sudden increase in work meetings that kept him out late. But I dismissed it. I was tired. Hormonal. Paranoid. That's what I told myself. Then came the night I woke up alone. I had gone to bed early, exhausted from a long day. When I rolled over at 2 a.m., Nathan wasn't beside me. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I checked the hallway. Empty. Then I saw the soft light coming from the garage. He was in there, sitting in the car, phone to his ear. I didn't hear the words, but I saw the smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months, the kind that used to be mine. When he came back inside, I pretended to be asleep. He climbed into bed, wrapped an arm around me like nothing had happened. I lay there, frozen, the baby kicking softly beneath my skin. I told myself I would confront him, that I would ask, but the truth is, I was scared. Scared of hearing something I couldn't unhear. Scared that the man I loved wasn't the man I thought he was. So I said nothing, and the silence grew louder. Part 2: The baby monitor. After that night in the garage, everything changed, not on the outside, not yet, but inside me. Something shifted. I started watching instead of trusting, listening instead of speaking. Nathan was still attentive, in the way that made me question my own doubts. He kissed my forehead each morning, rubbed my back when I couldn't sleep, but there was a distance behind his eyes, like he was somewhere else even when he was right in front of me. I tried to tell myself it was the stress. First-time parenting scared everyone, right? Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he was trying to hold it together for both of us. But the day I came home early from my OB appointment, the one he said he couldn't make, I heard laughter. Not from the TV, not from a call. Real, soft, unmistakably feminine laughter, coming from our bedroom. I froze at the bottom of the stairs. My heart thudded so hard I thought I might pass out. But when I finally climbed those steps and opened the door, the room was empty. The laughter was gone. Nathan was nowhere to be found. The shower was running. He said he had come home to change and had just gotten in. I told him I'd heard someone. He laughed, too loud, and said I was probably just tired. "You've got the mom ears already," he joked. I didn't press it. I didn't want to be the paranoid wife. But I knew what I'd heard. I started checking the baby monitor at night, not because I didn't trust the baby was okay, but because Nathan had installed one of those newer monitors with two-way audio, and a camera. A camera that wasn't just pointed at the crib, but also caught a portion of our bedroom. One night, after feeding the baby and getting her back to sleep, I went downstairs and opened the app. What I saw made my blood run cold. There, in the early morning hours, Nathan sat on our bed, whispering into his phone, shirtless, laughing. "Don't worry, she's asleep," he said. I paused the video, stared at the timestamp. It was the same night I'd been up with the baby for 2 hours. That was the first time I allowed myself to say the word affair. The next day, I packed a small bag for the baby and left her with my sister for the afternoon. I told Nathan I had errands to run. Then I went home and searched. I searched the way only a woman whose heart is breaking does, with desperation and dread. And I found it. An old iPad he never used anymore, tucked away in a drawer. He'd forgotten to log out of his messages. The truth was all there. Dozens of texts, pictures, messages that made me sick. She was someone from work, 25. She called him baby and my man. She asked if he'd picked names for our daughter yet, and laughed at the ones we'd chosen. He told her things he hadn't told me. Private things, personal things. Their relationship wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was real, and it had been going on for over a year. I didn't cry, not then. I took screenshots, every message, every photo, every detail. Then I turned off the iPad, picked up the baby, and drove. Part 3, Shattered Vows. I didn't know where I was driving, just away. Away from the walls that heard his lies. Away from the bed where he whispered to her while I lay beside him. Exhausted and blind, the baby gurgled softly in the back seat, unaware that her mother's entire world had just shattered. I ended up at my sister's place again. She opened the door and took one look at me. She's pale, trembling, eyes wide with something beyond sadness, and didn't ask questions. She took the baby from my arms, kissed her forehead, and told me to sit. I sat. And then I fell apart. Everything came pouring out, the messages, the baby monitor, the shower, the laughter, all of it. My sister didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp or try to fix it. She just held my hand and let me break. "You're not crazy," she whispered. "You saw it, you felt it, and now you know." Knowing didn't make it hurt less. In some ways, it hurt more. That night, while my daughter slept in the next room, I opened the screenshots again. I needed to look. I needed to remember, because there was still a piece of me that wanted to forget, to pretend this wasn't happening. But it was. One message stuck with me more than the rest. She'd texted him a photo of herself in our bathroom, wearing one of my robes. And his response? "You look better in it than she ever did." Those words were the dagger. Not the cheating, not the lies, that sentence, that dismissal of me, of everything I had given, everything I had sacrificed. He didn't just cheat on me. He erased me. The next morning, I returned home. I wanted to see if he would lie to my face, if he would look into the eyes of the woman carrying his child and pretend again. He did. He kissed me like nothing had happened, asked if I wanted breakfast. I told him no, that I wasn't hungry, that I hadn't been hungry in weeks. And then I asked him, "Do you love her?" He blinked. "What?" "I saw the messages," I said quietly. "I saw everything." His face dropped. He didn't deny it. He didn't get angry. He didn't even apologize. He just sat down, elbows on knees, and whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "That's what they all say, isn't it? I didn't mean for it to happen." As if love, marriage, fidelity, was something you accidentally misplace like a set of keys. "I gave you everything," I said. "I trusted you when I shouldn't have trusted anyone. I stayed when things got hard. I believed in you more than I believed in myself." He didn't speak. I stared at the man I once thought would grow old with me, the man who kissed my belly when we couldn't conceive, the man who said I was his home. And I felt nothing but emptiness. "You need to leave," I said. He hesitated, but I didn't flinch. "You don't live here anymore." He didn't fight. He didn't beg. He packed a bag and left. Just like that. No tears, no explanations, no vows, just silence, the same silence that had rotted our marriage from the inside out. And when the door closed behind him, I sat down on the floor, surrounded by the echoes of a life we'd built together. And I wept. Part 4, Echoes of Her. The first morning without him felt like waking up in someone else's house. The bed was cold on one side. His toothbrush was gone. The closet hung with space where his shirts used to be, but somehow, the air still smelled like him, like betrayal wearing cologne. I walked through each room, carrying the baby monitor in one hand and a mug of untouched tea in the other. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was haunted. Every corner reminded me of them. I saw her shadow in the living room, the place she sat, laughed, maybe whispered secrets while I was out buying groceries. I imagined her on our couch, legs tucked under her, wearing my robe, sipping my tea. How long had she been living in my life without me knowing? It's a specific kind of torment, to realize you were hosting your own undoing. I wanted to hate her, desperately, but my rage kept turning back toward him. He invited her in, he opened the door, he let her have everything that used to be mine. And the worst part? He didn't fight to stay. He didn't chase me when I told him to leave, didn't beg for forgiveness, didn't scream that it was a mistake, just packed a bag, like we were roommates who'd had a disagreement. As if I hadn't carried his child, as if I hadn't wiped tears off his face during his mother's funeral, as if love could be shelved and replaced so easily. That afternoon, my sister came by. She helped me clean the house, not for him, not for her, but for me. We stripped the bed, washed every sheet, tossed the robe she wore into the trash. It felt symbolic, a small reclaiming of space that used to feel like mine. You know what I think? My sister said, wringing out a towel. I think he's scared. Of what? I asked, facing what he did. No, of facing you, of realizing he lost the best thing he ever had. I wanted to believe her, but belief felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. That night, the baby cried more than usual. Maybe she felt the tension, or maybe she just missed the low hum of his voice in the hallway. I rocked her for hours, whispering lullabies with a crack in my voice I couldn't fix. You'll never be like him, I told her. You'll grow up strong, brave, honest, I promise. She looked up at me with those big eyes, his eyes, and I wondered how I'd ever explain this to her one day. What would I tell her? That love isn't always enough? That sometimes people fail you even when you give them every chance not to? That betrayal wears the face of someone you once trusted with your life? Or maybe I'd tell her the truth, I was just learning myself. That survival isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being broken and still choosing to live. Still choosing to love. Still choosing yourself. The next few days passed in a strange, hollow rhythm. Friends started calling. A few had seen the signs. They said, the way he pulled away, the way she looked at him. One even confessed she caught them in a too-close moment at a holiday party but didn't want to cause drama. Drama, as if my life was a stage. I didn't have the strength to be angry at them. Not yet. My fury was still rooted in one man and the promises he broke. A week later, he called. I stared at his name on the screen, my heart racing, my throat closing, but I answered. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I'm not ready to hear that. He paused. I miss her, he said quietly. My breath caught. Our daughter? Yes, he whispered. And you? A silence passed between us so deep I could hear my pulse. I made a mistake, he continued. It wasn't love, it was escape. I didn't know how to handle how distant we'd become. I closed my eyes. You think I wasn't tired? That I didn't feel that distance? The difference is, I stayed. Another pause. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I just needed to tell you that I see it now. Everything you were, everything I wasn't. He cried. I didn't. I'll be there for our daughter, he said before hanging up. However you need me to be. The call ended. The silence returned, but it didn't feel as heavy this time. Maybe it was the first crack of light breaking through. Maybe it was the beginning of healing, not for us, but for me. Because now I wasn't clinging to what we had. I was learning to let it go. Part 5. What remains after ruin? It's strange what you start to miss when someone leaves, not just their presence, but the habits, the friction, even the noise. The way keys jingle when they walk in. The half-laughs during late-night TV. The smell of coffee brewing before dawn. Silence becomes louder in their absence. Too loud to sleep through. Too loud to live with. But eventually, your ears adjust. The silence becomes something else, space. And in that space, I started to rebuild. I started small. Rearranged the furniture. Put his framed photos away, not destroyed, just stored, like closing a book you're not ready to finish. I painted the bedroom walls a soft lavender. It felt like claiming something, no longer ours, just mine. I didn't cry every day anymore. Some days I even laughed. I found joy in simple things, brushing my daughter's hair, morning walks with headphones on, dancing in the kitchen without worrying who was watching. I wasn't healed, but I was healing. One afternoon, I met a woman at the park. Her son shared his snack with my daughter. We chatted about nap schedules and teething, but somehow, the conversation turned deeper. I divorced last year, she said. Caught him texting his coworker. You? I nodded. My husband had an affair. With my best friend. She winced. That's layered. We both laughed. And I realized something in that moment, I wasn't alone. Not really. There are millions of women walking around with hearts patched back together, smiling anyway. Women who faced the wreckage and said, I'm still here. We exchanged numbers. A week later, we had coffee. I told her more. She told me everything. We laughed until tears came. Not out of pain, but survival. Then, the court papers came. He didn't fight me on custody. Full legal custody to me, visitation on weekends. He didn't beg for a second chance. Part of me hated how easy he made it, like our life was just a chapter he could skim past. But the other part, the deeper part, was grateful. Because closure isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just paperwork in the mail. Sometimes it's finally knowing you don't need their permission to move on. One night, months later, I saw him again. We exchanged the baby bag and her favorite blanket like old business partners. His eyes looked tired. Guilt still lived behind them. But the love, the kind that once warmed me from the inside out, was gone. I saw it clearly for the first time. He asked, "Are you okay?" And for the first time in a long time, I didn't lie. "I'm getting there." He nodded. "I'm glad," he said. I was too. People always ask what the hardest part of betrayal is. The lie? The person? The loss? For me, it was realizing that love isn't always enough to keep someone loyal. That devotion doesn't guarantee safety. That even in a shared home, you can feel abandoned. But you know what's stronger than betrayal? Reinvention. I'm not the same woman he left behind. I'm something else now. Something tougher. Kinder. Wiser. I still believe in love, but not the kind that needs proving or permission. The kind that starts with me. Because healing isn't about forgetting. It's about learning to live beautifully in the aftermath. And I am. We are.